I'm Dr. Peter Muir. This is my colleague Georgia Pike, and we have similar accents, but don't be fooled. We're actually from everybody. It's funny, in America, people think British accent is Australian, and I've heard the opposite too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
People think I'm because I don't say "G'day, mate," and
Right.
wrestle crocodiles or something.
Right. Exactly. Good day, mate. Yes, I've got to get that one. Okay. Anyway, originally I'm from England. I now live in Dutchess County, New York, and this is Georgia. She's Georgia Pike. She's a professor. And what is your full title?
I'm convener.
Convener
of the Music Engagement Program at the Australian National University in Canberra, Australia, which is the capital, even though it's very small. But anyway, most people have heard of Sydney, but it's just south of Sydney. Yeah. So.
Great. And this morning's, the whole session this morning is divided into two very dividable chunks. We will take a break at about 10:20, 10:15, 10:20, something like that. And I'm going to present in the first half, and then Georgia will present in the second half. And what brings them together is, what brings our presentations together, which are going to be very different for one another, is about a different kind of philosophy of music, a different approach towards the act of music making. In our culture, we think of music as being really mainly for entertainment. But music is able to do something much more important. It's able to help people with disabilities transform their lives in many different ways. Now, there are different approaches for doing this. We're going to be sharing a common approach this morning. You're going to be seeing examples of it, and you're actually going to be doing it yourself. And the work that we're doing is based on the work of a medical doctor called John Diamond. And I'm just going to talk about him just for a moment. He is a pioneer in the field of holistic medicine. He's done many, many different things within that field. But the particular point of contact here is that he's a pioneer in using the arts in general, not just music, but the arts, for what you might call well-being, health, personal development, whatever phrase you want to use. And I run the Institute for Music and Health, which is up in Dutchess County, which is about an hour and a half away from it. It's about 80 miles north of here. And we specialize in doing his work and things that come out of his work. And I work a lot, and have done for many years, with people with disabilities of all kinds, but particularly people with autism. Okay? So the way we're going to run this, as I said, is I'm going to do my workshop first. We're going to have a break. Then Georgia will do her presentation. And then we'll have a Q&A for the whole morning at the end of that time. All right? So, and you all have a sheet there, right, too, which is, I think this is going to have more on it than I have time to get to today. So you can take it away as a source of information as well as a souvenir. Okay, so here we go. Now, let me tell you, first of all, about my first experience of working with somebody with autism. It was in England many years ago, about 1989, I think. And I had a colleague at a school I was teaching who was moving over to America. And she passed on some of her students to me. And one of them was a young man, he was 11 years old at that time, called Derek, who was blind, and very autistic. He was like very low functioning on the spectrum. And he had really no language at all, apart from a little bit of what they call echolalia. You know what that is, right? So you'd say, "Good morning, Derek," and he might say, "Good morning, Derek," back. And that was about it. He really did nothing else at all. He was a sweet-looking kid. He had a shock of blonde, curly hair. And because he was blind, he kind of like looked up all the time. And he was kind of sort of angelic looking. But there was really, in terms of communication, there was nothing happening at all, very, very little. You sat him down at a piano and you said, "Okay, Derek, let's do Ain't Misbehaving, F sharp major, play the melody with your left hand in 5/4 time." He'd be off. And then you'd say, "Okay, now do it in the style of Oscar Peterson." He'd be off. "Now do it like Fats Waller." He'd be off. It was the most incredible thing. And he's now become a national celebrity in England. He's now in his 30s. He's become a national celebrity. They call him the human iPod, which I'm not very happy about that name, I have to confess, but he can play anything in any key. He's had books written about him. He had a 60 Minutes documentary made about him. His name is Derek Paravicini. You can look him up on Wikipedia and the web. It's Paravicini. Truly incredible. And that sparked my interest in this whole. So I've never heard of autism before, I don't think, at this time. And there were an awful lot less autism around in those days. We're going back over a quarter of a century. And then, particularly when I came out here to America, I started working extensively with people with autism. And taking Dr. Diamond's approach, I've sort of developed my own approach for doing that. Now, in a way, none of that is of relevance to most of you people. In this sense, in that I'm a highly trained musician. I come from a very elite musical background. I was a graduate of the Royal College of Music in London, which is as elite as it sounds. And I perform concerts. I do all that sort of thing that supposedly real musicians are supposed to do. That's not really what we're talking about, because the philosophy that we are sharing this morning is that music is not something that just exists in a few people, a few very talented people like me and like Derek. Music is something that exists in everybody. And if you go back and you look at almost any other culture except our own, what you will find is that was the belief. Everybody just, in the old days, before the advent of recordings, everybody just used to get up and sing, right? I'll give you just one example. There are millions I could give you. A few years ago, they were restoring an old church in England, in what had been at one time a medieval town. It was a medieval church. The church was maybe 800-900 years old, and there was what seemed to be like a blank wall, like this wall here. There was a blank wall that was kind of had the plaster falling down. They needed to restore it, so they took the wall down, and what they found behind the wall was perfectly preserved from the medieval era. They found a painting, a panel divided into four, of life in the village in the medieval times. Extraordinary, in an amazing state of preservation and everything. And it showed everybody in the different seasons. That's why it was in fall, winter, summer, the 4 seasons. And what was going on in the village in the different seasons. So in the spring, you saw the peasants sort of planting, sowing the seeds and planting the seeds, and then in the summer you saw, so all these people working in the fields at different times of the year. But there was one thing they didn't understand. Why did they all have their mouths open? Like this. They didn't get it. And then somebody explained they're all singing. That's what people used to do, okay? People used to sing all the time, but the advent of urbanization, but particularly recordings, wonderful though they are, have stopped us singing. Now, this brings us to the first important point, which is I'm going to tell you now about a piece of research that they did in Germany a few years ago. They took a choir, who were giving a performance of, I think it was Mozart's Requiem. It doesn't actually matter what the piece was. They were giving a big concert. And they went to all the members of the choir and they took blood samples from before the concert and after they had given the performance. And they monitored the blood and they found that after the performance, the blood was much healthier than it was before the performance, which is the so-called healing power of music. It actually became much healthier. There were more, was it T cells? I forget, I'm not good with that stuff, but there were more certain kinds of hormones and so forth. But what they did was they recorded that performance, and about a week later, when the blood had gone back down to normal, they got the chorus together again, took the blood to check that it had gone down to normal, and played the CD of the performance to the chorus, the same one that they'd given, and measured the blood after they listened to the CD. This time there was no difference. Music is something that is designed to be done. It's not really, it's not like a spectator sport. It's something that you yourself need to be involved with. And to most of us, that's a very alien concept. We all think of the idea of going to concerts, but we do not, most of us, think of the idea of giving concerts ourselves. All right? So what we're going to be talking about now is what you might call not how our society says we should do music, but how the natural way of doing music, what you might call the evolutionary way of doing music. Now, because we don't have much time this morning, I'm going to cut to the chase. What do you think is the basic purpose of music from an evolutionary perspective? Does anybody have any idea about that? Communication, certainly. From whom to whom? Let's hang on to that word communication, because as soon as you use that word, you're talking about something that has direct relevance to people with autism, right? Okay, but communication, there's one specific sort of communication we're talking about. Can anybody think what it is? Emotional. Sure, emotional communication. From whom to whom? No, not self. No, not self. That, I would suggest, is that opinion has been influenced by what is put out in our culture about music. No, not self. Not self. Now, and by the way, what do you know the Greek word for self? Well, here's a Greek expert. Auto. So for instance, that gives automobile, which means it moves itself. What's another word that comes from self, from auto? Autism. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, now, so not self. What's the opposite of self? Other. Other, right? Okay, and can you tell me the Latin for other?
Alter.
Alter. Yeah, we didn't rehearse this. This is all on the fly. So what?
Is it the same word, the Latin and the...
No, one is alto, which is transliterated A-U-T-O, and then the other is alter, which is A-L-T-E-R, which gives us such word as alternate, like other. Matter of fact, I would suspect it's the same word as other, ultimately, if you take it back. Okay? And that gives us another word too, altruism, which is giving out to other people freely with no expectation of return. Okay? And what we're talking about is that music is by its nature altruistic. It is altruistic. It's about giving out to others. And as I said, because we don't have much time, I'm going to tell you who. How many of you here are mothers? Put your hands up if you're a mother. Okay. You're not a mother? No. Okay. How many of you sang to your babies? Yeah? Did any mother here not sing to their babies? And yet none of you, or very few of you, would describe yourself as able singers. Is that right? Right. Now, so when you sung to your babies, did it work? Why did you sing to your babies? Somebody tell me why they sung to their babies. It makes them feel better. Right. But you're not a mother. How come you know?
I'm a very involved dad.
Okay, there you go. Let's hear it for very involved dads, yeah? Okay. All right. Right. So you sing to your baby?
Well, they're 12 and 14 now, but for the first couple of years, I sang to them every night.
Uh-huh. And did it work?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Music, they learned 100 songs.
Right. Okay, 100 songs. Okay. Now, so did it, you mothers, when you sung to your babies, did it work? Did it singing to basically soothe the baby, calm the baby down, right? That is the basic purpose of music, right? That is what we're wired up to do. Everything else that says we've got to, what are you worried about with your singing? Who thinks they sing off key? Put your hands if you think you sing. No hesitation there, was there? Right. Okay. Okay. Who thinks that they mess up the words or they don't get the melody right? Who thinks they sing nicely? Let's ask that one. Okay. Our music teacher, our cameraman, and our professor of music education. Okay. Okay. Nobody else thinks they sing nicely. Okay. And yet, because there are two levels to music. There are two levels to music. There's a superficial one, which is all the stuff that we're taught at music colleges, like the elite Royal College of Music, which is how fast can you play? How accurately can you play? Are you getting the notes on key? Are you using the right fingerings? Are you using right? It's all about right, doing everything right, correct. But somehow or other, very often, the spirit behind the whole thing is mixed. But when a mother sings a lullaby to a baby, it's only the spirit. And that's all that really matters about music. And if you look back at different cultures, that's what you find. Then there's much less obsession with technical accuracy. There's much more emphasis on the feeling behind the music. Let me put it another way. We have brain, we have heart. We're taught that music in our culture says that music should be made with the brain. That's the accuracy, doing it right. But the only thing that matters about music is doing it with heart. Okay?
No matter the language you will sing.
Sorry?
No matter the language you will use to sing.
No matter the language. No, lullabies exist in every language, in every culture has lullabies. It's universal. All right. Now, I'm giving this that introduction for two reasons. Firstly, I want you to, let me put it together like this, that there are, how many people on the planet now? 7 billion or 7 billion and 1? Did it go up? I don't know. A lot of people, right? And the way that we see it is that music exists in everybody. It's not just something that is there for the very obviously talented few. And I'm going to quote now a little poem by sort of poetic statement by Dr. Diamond, the founder of the institute that I'm director of, about this. And listen very carefully, because if you get this and you think about this, I think it may change your attitude towards all this. Here's what it is. To die without having released the music inside you is a tragedy for you and for us. The way that I see it is that everybody has music inside them, and it needs to be released. This is how it was seen much more in the old days. This is what every mother instinctively knows. But as so often with our instincts, they've been suppressed by the culture that we live in, the, as it were, unhealthy culture, from that point of view, unhealthy culture that we live in. Okay? So now I work with a huge number of people. Just in this week, I will be working with, tonight I'll be running a program in Poughkeepsie, New York. Who's heard of Poughkeepsie, New York? Yeah, I'm excited. Oh boy, I'm flattered. But you guys, you're just smooth talking me. Okay, I'll be in Poughkeepsie, New York, running a program for people at all levels of functioning with disabilities. We'll have some there who are very high functioning, and we'll have some who don't do anything except maybe occasionally hit on a block of wood. But with all of them, I see the purpose as the same, which is that they all have music inside them, and it all needs to be released. And that, as it were, will help enhance their lives. It will help it enhance their lives in general ways, but also it can help enhance their lives in terms of their functioning as well. Okay, as well. So, and that's just tonight. I'll also be working with professional musicians this week as well, helping them for the same purpose, to help release their music and improve their music as well. It doesn't matter. I could be working with someone who has, quotes, no musical ability, or somebody who's a genius like Derek. But the goal is always the same, to search out the music that's inside them and to release it. So what I'm giving you permission. You have my permission. I write an indulgence for everybody at the end of this workshop. Is whoever you're working with, in whatever situation, whether it's your kid or if you're a teacher, any of the people, look for the music inside them. Look for the music inside them, because it will be there. And think about what is the best way to release it. Does that make sense? We're not trying to get them to sing on key. That's not the best way to release it, because that puts the thing in the brain. We're talking about the heart. Does this make sense to you, what I'm saying? Okay, so I think it's time we sung something. What do you think, Georgia? You've been wanting to for some time. I can tell. Yeah, I can feel a little thing here. Okay, why don't we all stand? There's a little thing like, this is Manhattan. Nobody stands before 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Okay, so what should we sing? How about You Are My Sunshine? Okay, good one to start with. Okay, anybody not know it? They have that in France? Yeah? You. Something about Le Soleil, Lele. Okay, so it goes like this. Ready? And you are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are grey. I like this. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. That's pretty good. Come on, Manhattan, 9:30 or whatever we are at the whatever in the morning. It's pretty good. Okay, now we're just going to let me just show you something very simple, but I cannot stress how important it is. Again, if you get this, you got everything you need from my perspective. Okay. Do it now. You remember before I talked about altruism as versus what you might call autism. Now, so the only thing is that you're singing. Inevitably, you're a bit self-conscious. And remember, you said that singing was for the self, and I said, no way, Jose, right? I said singing is for the other, right? Let's now make it for the other. Would you turn round to the person next to you or in the next row, and you're going to sing to them now, okay? For them, to them. You're going to be mummy. They're going to be your baby, okay? Okay, everybody. The gentleman here doesn't have somebody. He's an orphan. He's an orphan. I would prefer pairs. I would prefer pairs. We got. There we go. Okay.
We sang yesterday, and we sang You Are My Sunshine yesterday.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go. All right. Okay. You Are My Sunshine, for some reason, seems to be the big ice-breaking song in these circumstances. You know about the history? You know about the history of this song? Should I tell you about it? Louisiana. It was the state song of Louisiana. You know, till 1970. You know why? You know why? Because it was written by a guy called Davis. I just can't remember his first name right now. Who was one of the early country and western singers. Sorry? No. And not that. I just can't think of his name. I just can't think of his name. Anyway, he was one of the early country and western singers. He recorded it in 1939. It became a hit, of course. And actually, as a result of the popularity of that, he was twice elected Democratic governor of Louisiana. There you go. All right. So, okay. So now here's what you're going to do. You're going to turn to the person, okay, and you're going to sing to them. Now let's just have one of you sing to the other, okay, for the moment. All right. All right. One of you sing to the other. So what sorted out? You're going to swap, so you don't get off that lightly. Same song. Okay. Just make it up. Something sunshine, happy. What? We're going to sing it together. Okay. So the people who are singing we'll call A's. Okay. And then the people they're singing to they'll call B's. Okay. B for baby. Okay. All right. Okay. You're going to swap in a second, so don't think you're going to get off the hook. It doesn't work like that. Okay. All right. Okay. Ready? So now, the more you can encourage, think of your kids, your work. I know some of you work with adults, but your clients, if you can use that term. The more you can encourage them to make eye contact by making eye contact yourself, the more. And it's about more than just eye contact. It's about, as it were, your body sort of fields interacting. Okay? As much as that. Okay? Here we go. Ready? And you are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. That was pretty darn good. Okay. Let's swap now. Okay? So B's will now be singing to A's. Okay? Okay, here we go. Ready? And you are my sunshine.
My only sunshine, you make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Okay, take a seat. I'm going to tell you an interesting story. I'm going to tell you an interesting story. I may have the details slightly wrong because I didn't research this. I just heard about it recently, and it just as I was seeing you singing then, the idea popped into my mind. They found in an old manuscript, they found a recipe. They found an old like apothecary's, like a pharmacist's recipe, which he said cured so many illnesses, which was basically garlic in a particular form. This is going back to the 12th century, right? Or something like that, very, very old. And recently, as a joke, they decided to follow his instructions for how to make it. And what they found is it's curing all these different things. And they had no idea that it could possibly do this, and they don't really understand why. Okay? There's this wisdom in the as it were, the very old ways. Now, what you have here is the musical equivalent of that. We're surrounded by all this music just for entertainment. But what if I were to suggest the idea to you that the music that you've just made, not because of the music itself, but because of the altruistic rather than self-orientated way in which you were making it, is the equivalent of the garlic, that over time, done repeatedly, it has a profound effect on enhancing our lives and enhancing the lives of people with autism. Because remember, autism comes from self. It's, as it were, it's hard for people with autism to have a conception of other. That's difficult. Alter, other. So we talk about autism to altruism, that transition. Aut to out, we call it. Okay? How to do that? Well, basically, all you need to do with your clients is exactly what I've just done with you, with each other. So have you singing songs to each other, but not with the idea of putting on a big performance and doing a whole little thing with it, which is, as it were, self. No, not that. But with the idea of using it to benefit other people, okay? So the more you can encourage this, the more that it will help them. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Now, I'm going to show you, we're going to relax for a moment. I'm going to show you, we're going to do a couple of audio-visual things now. I'm going to start off by playing I'm doing it this way just because that's how we lined it up, because I've just changed everything since I've been started talking. But anyway, I'm going to start off by playing the greatest recording of one of the greatest songs ever written. The song is Over the Rainbow, okay, which has been called the Broadway's national anthem, right, from The Wizard of Oz. Everybody knows that song, right? Do they have that one in France, right? Yeah, good. What about you? Somewhere over the sing the opening for her. Somewhere over the... You heard that one? Not in Chinese. They don't have the Wizard of Oz in China. They do. Oh. Okay, but you know the melody. You heard the melody before, yeah. Okay, so it's one of the most famous American songs, and has been recorded thousands of times. Now, at the Institute for Music and Health, which I'm director, we have about 20,000 recordings, CDs, LPs, 78s, cylinders, everything, going back to the 1890s. We have a whole huge collection. And we've got many recordings of Over the Rainbow. Many recordings. How many times has that song been recorded, for heaven's sake? But this, I would argue, in its way, is the greatest. And it was recorded by a student of mine. I recorded it, but the singer is a student of mine, former student of mine. I taught a number of years ago, who at the time was 8 years old. His name was Davy. He came from a very, very difficult background. Both his parents were bipolar. And he himself was, I suspect, heading for bipolar, but he was fairly low functioning autism. He didn't have much language or anything, okay? But what he could do with his singing was, and the feeling and the humanity and the heart that he could put into his song was extraordinary. Technically, this is not the greatest. Julie Garland's definitely better than him. But in terms of heart, in terms of what you might call the lullaby thing, he did it better than anybody I've ever heard. You want to hear it? Whoops. My technology consultant. What do you think? Isn't that unbelievable? It's unbelievable.
But technically, it's damn good.
Well, yes, we're not supposed to.
I know, but I know.
I know.
Even that
Right.
is incredible.
Right. And I'll tell you, I once gave essentially this seminar for a whole big group of parish nurses in Poughkeepsie, New York. Have you heard of Poughkeepsie? Who's heard of Poughkeepsie, New York? Really? There were like 60 people in the room, and I played that and there was this sort of silence. And I said, are there any questions? Because I wasn't sure what to do because everybody was completely silent. And this hand went up. And I said, yes, you have a question? She said, yes, can you play it again, please? So, I mean, that's it. Now, I cannot make music like that. I cannot do it with that heart. I cannot. It's awe-inspiring. I cannot do it. And that is the gift that people with autism have, and that is what they have to offer us, okay? And when they are encouraged to do it that way, just to sing freely, now, I'd never worked with them. I'd never said, okay, you've got to make sure this note is in tune, Davey. You know, you got it slightly out of tune, or you got the words wrong, this and that. I would just give him recordings of the songs, and we would work through it. We'd just work through the songs together. Just a free approach, you see. That's what really works best with almost everybody. So that's really it. You know, if you get it. And that's in a way what they all have inside them. And all I was doing when I worked with him was just releasing the music. You remember that? That was half an hour ago. Releasing the music that was inside him. That was it. That's it. That's what they all have. Now, of course, you're going to say, come on, they don't all quite have that. Actually, they probably all do. Now, one thing about that is, but it's obviously, I'm giving you the examples that are, some are easy to bring to the surface, others are harder and require more skill, right? Okay, so, and more experience, shall we say, and a few tips, which a lot of which I've written down actually on the paper that you have there. But that's basically, but they all have that inside them. Everybody does. Everybody does. It's just, and it's so, with autism, the amazing thing is that it's often so much more easy to access that way than, say, trying to get them to speak correctly and all this sort of thing. Because if you go back to the idea of the lullaby, and the evolutionary purpose of music is, as it were, to comfort the child before the development of language. If you go back to that idea, music makes us safe. It makes us safe. And they've done research on autism about the amygdala. Do you know what the amygdala is? It's a little bit at the back of the brain, which is fear-based. And when, for instance, if there was a tiger to appear in that doorway now, all our amygdalas would go dong, 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 dong. And one of the characteristics of autism is that people with autism have overactive amygdalas. Apparently this research has been done. And if you look at it that way, it really explains a lot of the anxiety that people with autism have and how they live their lives. And music, the making of music, much more than the listening to it, the making of music, particularly when it's done in this free way, and if it's done for the purpose of helping someone else, will do more to calm the amygdala than as much as anything. And just to stress also, people with disabilities generally, but particularly autism, they tend to have this response to music, this relationship with music. They tend to relate to music more than they do to speech. As a matter of fact, they tend to relate to music more than they do real life. Now, you heard of Charlie Parker, the great saxophonist? He was once asked, what is your religion? And his answer was, I'm a musician. Okay? And what he was really saying was that musicians what defines a musician in a way is that they relate to music more strongly than they do to real life. And if you see that, you know, you read stories of concert pianists who will sit there practicing for 18 hours a day. Did you just see that horrendous movie about the drummer? What was it called now? Did you see about the drummer? I just forgot the name of the movie. It's called something like Flip or something. About a drummer in a jazz band, and there's this tyrannical music teacher who sort of completely victimizes and destroys his life. I just kind of... Anyway, if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry about it. So that's what defines music for a musician, is that music is more real to them in a way than reality. I'm speaking very metaphorically. With people with autism, much less so. Much less so. It's much less metaphorical. It is the reality of music, the magical reality of music is more real for them than the world. They go there so easily. Now, so at the Institute, almost every week we get a call that is essentially the same call. Each time, the phone call, it's always the same conversation in one way or another. And it's this: hi, I'm a parent. My son, of course, usually his son, son has autism, and he's got all sorts of problems, blah, 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 blah. But he really likes music. We always get this, but he really likes music. We get this again and again and again. And the response to music, if you look at your clients, your people, you will find it is there. It is there. And all that means is that the well of music that exists in everybody that needs to be released, it's easier to release it with them. Something else too, just a specific point. We've got this idea that people with autism don't like language. They don't like words. What do you think about Davy? You think he likes words? Listen to the beauty with which he crafted each word in that performance. Isn't that the most amazing thing? That's a big, I think, misapprehension. People with autism love words. They love it. It's just difficult for them, but they love the words. Do you understand? They do love the words. This is a misunderstanding. Now, in terms of using all this stuff altruistically to help other people, I'm going to show you another video clip now. This is a little 5-minute video taken in near Poughkeepsie, New York. Have you heard of? No. Actually, this isn't. This is closer. This is a place called Millbrook, which is near Poughkeepsie, New York, at a seniors' residence. And what we do is we have this group of people with multiple disabilities, but quite a number with autism. And we teach them the old songs like You Are My Sunshine. And then they go into a seniors place, like a sort of nursing place. And they go and sing the songs, not for the seniors, which would be performance, concert, but with the seniors to help the seniors. It's interactive. So they're using their musical gifts to help other people. So they are becoming altruistic. Do you understand? Okay, so we're going to show this little video now. Maybe we could do something with the lights and... maybe...
you out of your shop. What do you think?
Yes, that's right.
So they don't have any inhibitions, do they? They help you lose your inhibitions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Know all these people as friends. To get it to feel closer with it.
So do you get a sense of how this, the key is getting out of this, our mainstream paradigm of what music is, which is self, performance, display, America's Got Talent, whatever. Getting out of all of that and instead using it altruistically to help the others and to help other people. Any way that you can do that you will help enhance their lives generally. And also, now let's talk about a few specific things. So this is just from your sheet that you have there. Before we do, though, there's just one other thing I want to mention. I get asked a lot of questions. About what about why singing? What's wrong with hitting a drum? And the answer is there's nothing wrong with hitting a drum. But why singing? Because we're not born with a drum in here. We're not born with a Steinway or a Stradivarius. What we're born with in here is a voice. And with all people I work with, regardless of whether they have disabilities or not, I always work with singing first as a prime means of expression. You've got to be comfortable using the voice. Now, if you're working with someone, of course, who doesn't have, who's, as it were, lower functioning, doesn't have any singing, so then, of course, you need to use instruments. But if you can surround them, you yourself should be singing and getting them to sing. You just have to use your instrument. But the way to start, if possible, is to encourage them with the voice. And very often, they're reluctant to do that. They'd sooner play on a drum. And the reason for that is not complicated. Quite honestly, wouldn't you? Don't you feel a little bit safer just banging on a drum rather than revealing more of yourself than singing, through singing? Most people would, particularly people who are not trained and don't feel comfortable with the notion of singing. We would all rather go to drums, okay? But what I encourage is to take that step. I'll give you a good example. I've got a wonderful student called Khalil, who is a phenomenally gifted classical pianist. He's just remarkably gifted. And what happened was he showed no interest at all in music, particularly, until his elder sister, who did do a bit of piano, was not a great pianist, but she was, did some piano. She left home and she went to college, not for music. She wouldn't. But what happened was this piano bench was now empty, so Khalil decided he was going to fill it. So now at the age of 14, he sits down and he starts working out songs by ear. And his parents are amazed that he can actually work out things, just tunes and stuff, by ear. So he sent them to us. And within, you can see all these videos we have of him on YouTube. Within 6 months, he gave a performance of the slow movement of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, which is not the sort of thing that beginner pianists do unless they're geniuses like Hillel. I mean, he's really an extraordinary. He's invented, we had him actually, he was one of the people that was written about in this article we had in the New York Times last year. He invented his own system of music notation because he couldn't understand the regular music notation. And he could hear all this music. So he invented his own system of music notation, which I've documented and I've talked a lot about, that works extremely well. But he invented the whole thing. And but it was only piano. There was no singing. You tried to get him to sing, you get some attitude. I mean, he's not, he doesn't stop throwing things around the room, but there's kind of like, there's all this kind of reluctance and this and that and that. And he's now become one of our star singing performers. He's fantastic. I mean, if I thought of it, I would have brought a video along. But he's just, we've got videos of him on YouTube. In our big chorus concert we've got coming up in a few weeks, he will be singing just what makes that little old ant think he'll move a rubber tree plank? Because he's got high hopes. That song, old Frank Sinatra number. And he's fantastic. He's just really amazing. So, but if I hadn't pushed him, he wouldn't have done it. Okay? And basically all the students I have sing. We get them all to sing, regardless of whether they have autism or they don't. And regardless of what instrument they're playing. So always start with the voice, if possible, and if it isn't, then whatever. You just work around that as best you can. Okay? Now, in terms of repertoire, there's some important point, like what songs should you be doing with them? Well, obviously it needs to be stuff that you yourself feel comfortable singing. So you need to be clear about that. And there are really three kinds of categories. There are three broad categories that it falls into. A great place to start with people with autism, for whatever reasons, is children's songs. It just never seems to fail. Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm sorry, it's just, they're always, it seems to me they're never happier a lot of the time than when, a lot of them, than when doing kids stuff, because this is stuff that they grew up, this stuff they heard in the womb, this is stuff that they grew up with, they were tiny. It's sort of imprinted so deeply within them, it's so easy, and they just love that. Similarly, holiday type songs, seasonal type songs, just anything, White Christmas, whatever, anything. It's like, how many times on programs have okay, who would like to sing something now? I want to do, White Christmas, or can we Jingle Bells, all-time world favorite, Jingle Bells. Jocelyn, it's July the 25th. Are you sure that Jingle Bells is really going? They love those songs. Okay, and the point is not to do something that's appropriate. That's not the idea. Not to do something that is appropriate. The idea is to do something that that gets them going, that they are comfortable with, that they can sing. All right. The third type of material is what we call Timpan Alley, which may be a phrase that's new to you, but a song like "You Are My Sunshine" will fall into the Timpan Alley category. These are mostly American popular songs from about the 1910 era to the 1950s, pre-rock and roll. They have the advantage of being easy to sing. They're very often personal songs, and they have really a lot of depth to them and a lot of personality. Lots and lots of personality. A lot of Broadway-type songs fall into that category. Think of "You Are My Sunshine." It's a very personal type of song. And we have, I'm going to give you, there's a resource listed on here for looking at those Timpan Alley, for learning those Timpan Alley songs. A lot of them will be familiar to you. You just didn't know they were called Timpan Alley. We're talking Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, composers like that. And also, there's a mistake which I've fallen into many times, which is you say to a kid, new kid, you want to get them on side. You say, "What would you like to sing?" And they say, "I want to sing blah, 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 blah." And you realize it's a mistake. Because the reason why they want to sing it is because they love the song. But that doesn't mean that it's easy for them to sing. And in that category, most modern music is not easy to sing for most of these kids. It's very difficult, as it probably would be for yourself. It's not designed to be sung. It's designed for you to put down your iPod and tap your foot along, but it's not designed for you to be sung. To be sung. These other kinds of material, children's songs and so forth, they're designed to be sung, okay? You're going to name exceptions, there are some. But in a general way, watch out for that. It needs to be relatively easy to sing, okay? Another mistake is to use folk songs which have, ballads with 25 verses, okay? The words are not easy for many people with autism or any kind of cognitive challenge to learn. And very often I'm in situations where the only thing, I've got a girl at the moment I'm working with who is potentially a fantastic, almost professional opera singer standard. She's amazing. But she finds it almost impossible to learn the words. And we've developed like various techniques and so forth with that. The words tend, although I did say they love them, yes, but they tend to be very difficult for most of them. Another thing, I'm just rattling off points until we run out of time now. Another thing is, when they're learning the songs, an important thing is, do they work better orally? In other words, just you saying the words, or do they work better visually, like reading the words? In most cases, it will be a mixture of the two, as it would be for us, right? As it would be for us too, but of course people with autism are so visually oriented. I'll tell you a great story of that. One of my long-term students, a young man named Michael Brenner, who's a wonderful singer and a pianist, when I started working with him, I could never get him to learn the lyrics to the songs. And I was just working orally. Why? Because he's legally blind. He has these big glasses. He can't, if you give him any bit of paper, he sits there and peers at it. You can't give words to somebody like that. But I could not get him to learn these lyrics. It was very heartbreaking. I was trying all sorts of things. I'm talking with his aide one day. He says, well, why don't you give him the printed thing? And I said, well, Michael's legally blind. And he said, oh, no, he has a photographic memory. Well, would have been nice if somebody had told me. So after that, of course, I blew the words up big and everything so he could read them. No problem, okay? So very often a mixture of visuals. So you can teach it to them by singing it to them, but often it's very helpful to have a word sheet there as a cue as well. They really do like that a lot. Okay. I've listed a whole bunch of things here. Let me finish by teaching you a little song that I've written specifically for people with autism that's designed to be easy to learn and easy for them to sing. And it embodies a number of things that it's worth thinking about. It goes like this. I've written it on the back here. It goes like this. Blue is the sky, and green is the grass, and I like singing in my singing class. Here we go. Here we go. Ready? And blue is the sky, and green is the grass, and I like singing in my singing